Simin Yazayin Sif base. Okay, so we were talking about who's chayiv and weighing tzitzis. We talked about the fact that it's a mitzvah asay shazman groma, positive mitzvah, which is time bound, which generally women are potter from. We talked about after the shidduch, it's not the case of all mitzvahs. The Gemara learns out by a number of mitzvahs. It learns from special joshas that women are chayiv even though they are time bound. For example, all the mitzvahs of Shabbos, even though they're clearly bound by time, the Gemara learns out that they're chayiv, just like women are chayiv in the negative mitzvahs of Shabbos, the lavin of Shabbos. They're not allowed to do malacha. They're also chayiv in all the mitzvahs asay of Shabbos, like kiddush, and the rabbonim were chayiv them in halacha-theory. And we talked about other mitzvahs during the year, and when they're chayiv, for example, Kriyas Megillah and matzah on Pesach. There's certain mitzvahs where which the women are chayiv, even though they're time bound. The Gemara learns of certain joshas. The other mitzvahs which women are potter from because they're time bound, generally the rule is that even though they're potter, they can do them if they want. Right? They'll still get schar, they can do them. Whether they make a bracha or not, we saw here, and it's also mentioned in other places, it's a machlokas between the Shulchan Aruch and the Ramah. The Shulchan Aruch holds that they cannot make a bracha on the mitzvahs they're potter from, and the Ramah holds that they can. And that's nowadays it says the Sfardim generally go like the Shulchan Aruch, so the Sephardi women will not make a bracha on mitzvahs they're potter from. Like lulav, the Sephardi woman will not make a bracha when she takes a lulav, whereas an Ashkenazi woman follows the Ramah, and if she takes a lulav, she will make a bracha, right? Because it's a mitzvah they're not chayiv to do; it's optional. If they decide to do it, then according to the Ramah they can make a bracha, so Ashkenazi women do, and if according to Shulchan Aruch they can't. Okay. Now we mentioned with the tzitzis, they're not chayiv, but we mentioned here that they shouldn't do it. Right? The Ramah says they shouldn't do it. Says it's mechzi kiyuara, looks arrogant, and he mentioned that a reason for the difference is because tzitzis is not a choivas gavra, meaning it's a lower level than other mitzvahs. Other mitzvahs, if a mitzvah means a person has to do it, right? It's a chiyuv to do it. But we have to come to the first day of Sukkot, one has to shake his lulav. Right? It's not optional for men. One has to do it. Therefore, for women, they can if they want. Whereas tzitzis, we mentioned that even for men, strictly speaking, a man doesn't have to put on tzitzis. It's just if he doesn't own a garment with four corners, he doesn't have to put tzitzis on it. So only if he's wearing a garment with four corners, then he has to put tzitzis on the beged. And therefore, women don't wear beged at all. Okay. So now let's have a look at.
Is there no reference that the tzit is a manly garment?
Oh, excellent. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach mentioned this. That besides all this, besides all the reasons we mentioned why a woman doesn't put on tzitzis nowadays, Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach says to take a completely separate reason, which is what you mentioned, which is to take what we call a talis today, which is a garment that men wear. Right? For a woman to put that on is she's being over on the prohibition of lo yiyech ligev isha, for a woman to wear male garments. Yeah, the Rishon Zalman mentioned that's a separate issue. But we're talking about even if she was to make her own garment and put tzitzis on, even that's not recommended. But obviously to put on a garment which is worn by men is a separate problem of wearing a man's garment. Yeah, very good. Rishon Zalman says that. Okay.
I think Sid got in there.
Yeah, I think so too. Well, we actually started it, I think. But let's go from the beginning again, otherwise it's confusing. So it's sif cotton hay. Sif cotton hay. It's in the narrow lines of the Mishabura, 6 lines before the end of the narrow lines. So it's about halfway down the page. ואין חובס גברה, וזה מתרץ למה מברכס אנושים על לולוב זה גם כמצווה עשה שהזמן גרומה. The Ramah here is explaining the reason why tzitzis is different from lulav, where lulav, even though it's a time-bound positive command, women do make a bracha in, whereas tzitzis they don't. V'tirat shani hosam she'einu choivas gavra, she'afilu ish ein olav chiv de'raisa liknus talis bas dalet kamfos ela mis'atev chayv la'asos b'tzitzis. And the difference is between tzitzis and lulav is by tzitzis, a man is not midiraisa chayv to buy a beggar to put tzitzis on it. Not a choivas gavra. Masha ein kein lulav the gabe ish for choivas gavra shon choivas haguf. Whereas lulav is a choivas gav on a man. It's a chiyuv on the person to take a lulav. That's the difference between lulav and tzitzis. Okay, we mentioned that. Shechovas haguf. Okay, let's carry on now. This is now something new. But that should know. Do'anon paskin and gabi tzitzis choivas gavru v'lav choivas gavru. Tzitzis, in one way, it is dependent chiyuv on the actual person, and in a certain way, it isn't. Which are lekula. Both of them are lekula. He's going to explain that. Choivas gavru lekula lemiut choivas mona. Shekos man she'ein lo v'shatalis, afa pi she'dalit kanfis p'tor mitzitzis. In one way, it is a chiyuv on the person. In that if he owns a beged of 4 corners, but he's not wearing it, it's just sitting in his cupboard, there's no chiyuv to put tzitzis on. And the chiyuv is only when he's actually wearing the garment. In that way, it's a chiyuv on the person, not on the clothing. Right? If it was completely a chiyuv on the clothing, then if it was in the cupboard, it would have to have tzitzis on. Right? It's not, in that way, it's a chiyuv on the person. It's only when he's actually wearing the beged that has to have tzitzis. When it's in the cupboard, it doesn't need to. Lav choivas gavra, she'ein chayv liknos lo talis kadei she's chayv b'tzitzis. In another way, it's not a chiyuv on the person. In that, if he doesn't own a beged with tzitzis, he doesn't have to go out and buy one. So it's called choivas gavra v'lav choivas gavra. In both of them are lekula. In some ways, it's dependent on the person. In another way, it's not dependent on the person. Right? There's no chiyuv for him to go out and buy a pair of tzitzis. And there's also, if he's got a pair of tzitzis in his cupboard, there's no chiyuv to put tzitzis on it. So only if he's actually wearing a garment with 4 corners, then he has to put tzitzis on. Okay. Now this is all Mediraisa. So we mentioned that the Gemara says in the time of Kas, Hashem punishes for people who don't wear tzitzis because it's such an easy mitzvah to be mekayim. If someone doesn't do it, it's showing that he doesn't care, and therefore nowadays we're makpid always to wear talis cotton because of that. Sif cotton. Okay, that's already tumtum bandjoginus, which is not so relevant. So let's move on now. We discussed that last week. Let's move on now to Sif Gimel. So back to Shulchan Aruch at the top, the end of the second and last line. Sif Gimel. Cotton hayodea lis atif. A cotton who knows how to wrap himself in a talis. The father has to buy him tzitzis in order to be mechanechim. Mitzvah midrabanan of chinuch. When he knows how to do the mitzvah.
We're talking about the talis cotton here?
We're talking about anything. This is when he's chayving tzitzis. Talis cotton is the same. This is when he's chayving tzitzis. We're going to see in a minute the minhag nowadays, we'll see. In the moment we're talking about all tzitzis. The mitzvah tzitzis, which is whether it's the talis cotton, to chayving tzitzis, when he knows how to put on, when he knows how to do the mitzvah ituf, of wrapping himself in the talis. Hagor, v'davka k'shedeh la'atov shnei tzitzis lefonov ishnayim la'achoyrov. V'yodeh la'achos atzitzis b'yodeh b'shas kriyashima. He knows all the pratim how to put it on, two at the front, two at the back, and he knows how to hold the tzitzis in his hand during kriyashima. Says the Mishnah Berurah of Cotton Tess. That's 3 lines from the bottom of the page. On page 57, 3 lines from the bottom. Likach lo tzitzis, pirish. Likach lo beged shel daled kamfos. To buy him a garment of 4 corners, and to buy tzitzis, and to put on tzitzis, because they lechancho b'mitzvahs, in order to be mechanech b'mitzvahs. Shir talisoi, the size of the talis, kosav p'im megodim shem tzayin, u'b'derech ha'chaim, shu k'dei lis'atik b'y roishoi v'ruboy sheloi. It has to be here. We're not going to go with the shear of roishoi v'ruboy. We had a very fixed shear for gedolim. Here the cotton might be much smaller than that, and therefore it's enough that it covers most of his head and body. And we calculate it according to this individual child himself, according to his own height. If it has this shear, then his father has to put tzitzis on it, to make a bracha with him. If it's not big enough, then he shouldn't make a bracha on it. Nowadays we generally do give the katanim a talis cotton which is smaller than the shear.
From age 3.
We're going to talk about age in a minute. Yeah, so we'll talk about age in a minute. Now we just talk about the size of the beged. It says here that one shouldn't make a bracha on the beged unless it's big enough to cover to wrap rosha v'rubai. Right? People find it very difficult nowadays. Well, if it's big, if it's too big, then the kids end up tripping over it and tearing it. And the minhag nowadays is to make a bracha on it even if it doesn't cover Rosh Hashanah, but there are issues to rely on. Even the strictness between Kundam and Shabbat, one shouldn't make a bracha on such a mitzvah, on such a talis, however, we do. Nowadays we seem to. Now, according to what you mentioned, the age, to age 3, let's look at the Shari Tshuva. This is mentioned in the Shari Tshuva. This is above the Bir Halacha, above the Bir Halacha, so it's on the left part of this page, is the Shari Tshuva, and on the bottom line of the Shari Tshuva. This is just above where it says Bir Halacha.
This is L'chata?
Right, so just 2 words after that it says V'chosav, the third word on that last line, V'chosav Be'elirava. Right, just above the line above where it says Bir Halacha, the third word of the line. V'chosav Be'elirava b'shem Sifrei Yireim, L'harbish l'kotten talis kotten kishu yodea l'daber. Once he knows how to start speaking, then he should put on tzitzis. This is b'shem the Yireim. Yireim is one of the Rishonim. Rabbi Eliezer Metz. Metz is Metz in France. Rabbi Eliezer Metz is one of the Balei Tosfos. He's a Talmud of Rabbeinu Tam. It's about 800 years ago, maybe a little bit less. So when he knows how to talk. And at least, we're now on the top line of the next page, page 58, at least when he reaches 3, he should put it on. The simon, and a simon for this is ki ha'odom eitz hasodeh. A person is compared to a tree. Really, in the pasuk is the other way around. The pasuk is telling us not to cut down fruit trees, because when one goes to war, right, when one's fighting against people, right, as a fruit tree is not a person. We fight the soldiers of our country. We don't have to cut down the fruit trees. Right? From here we learn the general issue of bal tashchis, not to destroy things for no reason. But al pi Kabbalah, this is learned the other way around. That to compare the child to a tree, to just like the tree, we don't take this ola for the first 3 years. We don't cut the fruit for 3 years. So too, we also don't cut his hair for 3 years. And at this age of 3, this is when he says he should start wearing a tzitzis, and v'chein lahagilo bo'osis haTorah. This is when we should start teaching how to read aleph beis. Right? Which is where the minhag comes from nowadays, age 3. We do what's called an opshan, or an evet chalaka. Cut the hair. We take him to the Rebbe in the cheder to learn aleph beis, and on the way to the cheder we wrap him in a talis, and this is also when he starts putting on tzitzis, all at age 3. Based on this Yireim. Okay, let's move on now. Simon Yud Ches. Zman tzitzis uvoi gimel seifim. The time of putting on tzitzis. Sif Aleph. Lailo lav zman tzitzisu. Nighttime is not the time of wearing tzitzis. And this is what causes it to be a mitzvah. So we mentioned it's time bound, right? We were talking about minimum, it's time bound. We mentioned last time, I forgot to mention this time. It's time bound because it's only a chayv during the day and not at night. That's what makes it time. The image from the words you have to see, you have to see it, and we learn from there that it's potter at night when one can't see it. The Rambam, there's now a machlokas rishonim between the Rambam and the Rosh, right? Both of them rishonim, right? The Rambam we're all familiar with. The Rosh Rabbeinu Osher lived in Germany until he had to run away when he was worried he was going to be taken prisoner, like his Rebbe, the Maram Rothenberg, was taken prisoner and held for huge ransoms. He was worried about this. He ran away to Spain. According to the Rambam, Kol Masha Loivesh Balayla Potter, Afilu Hu Miyuchad Layoim. According to the Rambam, it's dependent on the actual time, if it's now night or day. If it's night time, then he's potter, even if it's a beggar that he generally wears, a garment he generally wears a day. If now it's night, it's potter. And what he wears during the day is chayiv, even if it's something he generally wears at night. Okay? So according to the Rambam, it's completely dependent on what time he's actually wearing the garment. He has to look at his watch, look outside, is it day or night? If it's day, he puts on tzitz. If it's night, he doesn't. It's irrelevant if the garment is generally worn during the day or during the night. According to the Rosh, according to the Rosh, it's dependent if the garment is generally worn by day or night. If it's a garment which is generally worn at night, then it's potter afilu lo shabayim. Even if now he's wearing it and it's during daylight hours, seeing it's a garment that's generally worn at night, it's potter from tzitzis. So
pajamas.
Yeah. Uksus hayoim miyuchad layoim V'layla chayv afilu lo yisha v'layla. And a piece of a garment which he wears all day, he wears both during the day and during the night, then it's chayv even at night. Then it's considered yuchod layom if it's for day and night. Hagor, how do we paskin this machlokes? Says the Ramah. But sofik brachos lahokei. We paskin that whenever we have a machlokes, we don't make a brach on it. Sofik brachos lahokei. Alkein. Therefore, one should only make a bracha on it if it fulfills both conditions. It's a garment, it fulfills the condition of the Rosh, that it's a garment which is meyuchad layom, it's generally worn, predominantly worn during the day, and also now it's daytime. He's wearing it currently now at day to fulfill the condition of the Rambam.
It says meyuchad gam ken layom.
He wears it a day, and not to this, it's also meyuchad, it's also generally worn a day.
So it stops at meyuchad, okay.
Yeah, it's meyuchad gam ken layom. Yeah, he wears it when he wears it a day, but meyuchad gam ken layom, it's also set aside for the day.
So if a person comes home after a hard day's work, and while he's home, the sun sets, he's out during the day, and he's going out at night, he takes a shower and he puts on clean clothes. What does he do with his tzitzit katan? Does he not wear them in that situation? He's going out at night now.
Okay.
Right.
Excellent question.
Right.
Let's answer this in 1 or 2 minutes after we see the Mishnah Berurah. Okay. Okay. Let's carry on. Let's stop now. We're going to continue the Gemara in a minute. Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah now, and we'll do the question. Then we'll continue the Gemara. Okay. Let's look at the Mishnah Berurah now. Okay, Mishnah Berurah of cotton base. The second line of the Mishnah Berurah of cotton base. This is an Indian bracha. The psak of the Ramah, sofik brachas lahakel, to only make a bracha if it's a garment which is worn by day and it's genuinely worn by day and he's currently wearing it by day. This is only talking about the bracha because it's sofik brachas lahakel. Aval also lilbush ksus shalayla bayom below tzitzis, chen ksus shalim balayla mishum sofik. Right? In terms of actually wearing a full common garment without tzitzis, this isn't Issa Deraisa, this we're going to go the other way. This is going to be Sofik L'chumra. And therefore one shouldn't wear a full common garment without tzitzis if there's a problem according to the Rosh or according to the Rambam. So to wear a garment during the day with four corners, even if this garment is a night garment, a garment one generally wears at night, and therefore it's potter according to the Rosh, however according to the Rambam it's chayiv. And therefore such a garment one should definitely put on tzitzis, or not wear it at all. You should definitely put tzitzis. You can't make a bracha because it's Sofik Brachas Lahakel, but you should put on tzitzis. Right? And is the same the other way around. If he's wearing a garment which is generally worn by day at night, generally it's a day garment, and now he's wearing it at night. Right? Even though it's potter according to the Rosh, it's chayiv according to the other way around. Even though it's potter according to the Rambam, it's chayiv according to the Rosh because it's a day garment, and therefore either he shouldn't do such a thing or he should make sure to put on tzitzis. Again, he wouldn't make a bracha because it's Sofik Brachas Lahakel. Okay, so you'd only have a case where he's not going to wear where he's going to wear a full common garment without tzitzis if it's potter according to both opinions. He doesn't wear it's a garment which is generally worn at night and now it's night time. Then he wouldn't put on tzitzis, so he can wear this garment four corners without tzitzis. If it fulfills one of the two conditions, right, which means either it's a day garment and now it's night time. Right? Or it's a night garment and he's wearing it now during the day, then it fulfills one of the conditions. It's chayiv either according to the Rambam or according to the Rosh. In such a case, he can't make a bracha. He should definitely put on tzitzis, but he can't make a bracha. Okay? If it fulfills one of the two conditions, then it's chayiv and tzitzis according to one of the two opinions. He should wear the tzitzis, right? But he shouldn't make a bracha on it. If it fulfills both conditions, it's a day garment and he's wearing it the day, then he wears it and he makes a bracha. Okay? So therefore, in answer to your question, if it's a day garment and now it's night time, okay, so it's still according to the Rosh, he's still fulfilling a mitzvah. Right?
What mitzvah is he fulfilling?
According to the Rosh, seeing as it's a day garment, it's a garment which is set aside for the
Getting
day.
dressed up like you would during the day.
Right? The tzitzis he's putting back on, in your question, are the same tzitzis, the same garment he wears predominantly during the day. Correct?
Well, my question actually was slightly different. Was should he put on tzitzit?
Should he put on? So what garment is he going to put on? The same one he wears during the day always?
Well, he could put on.
If it's just evening wear, only wears it at night time, then there's a protocol to everyone. There's no point putting it on. It's pointless.
Right.
If he has a pair of tzitzis, he only wears during the night. And there's no chayav in tzitzis. If we're talking about where he's just had a shower, he's putting back on the same tzitzis that he wears during the day, wore during the day, or a different pair of tzitzis which he genuinely wears a day. It's just a clean pair, but he genuinely wears it during the day. Then, according to the Rambam, there's no reason to put it back on because it's night time now.
Right.
According to the Rosh, he's doing a mitzvah. Right? According to the Rosh, it is chayav in tzitzis, so he's doing a mitzvah. So it's definitely a good reason to put it on, because according to the Rosh, it's chayav in tzitzis.
And he's either this chayav is rabbinic or it's rabbinic. It's not.
No, according to the Rosh. Okay, the midiraisa, it's only if he's actually wearing the tzitzis, wearing the garment with the four corners he puts on tzitzis. If it's just a question, should I put on the garment or not? Midiraisa, he never has to put on the garment. There's no chiyuv from the Torah to put on a garment.
Right.
Right?
Is a rabbinic.
It's only ever rabbinic to actually take the garment and put it on. That's only ever rabbinic. But once it's on, he's actually fulfilling a mitzvah midiraisa.
Right. Now
However, but it's night time. He's only fulfilling a mitzvah midiraisa according to the Rosh. According to the Rambam, there's no mitzvah. According to the Rosh, it'd be a mitzvah because he's wearing a garment which is generally worn at day, and therefore it's chayav in tzitzis.
So he should make an effort to fulfill the Rosh's mitzvah.
Yes.
He should make an effort to put them on without a bracha.
I think so. Yeah. I think so.
At night.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. Let's stop here. We'll continue a little more. Okay.